This, I guess, is the podcast before the podcast because we don't have a name for the podcast yet.
Yeah.
So this is the pre-podcast podcast. This is episode 0.
Essentially.
Episode 0.
This is the pilot episode.
Pilot episode.
Yeah.
The pilot podcast.
Who knows what's going on?
101 podcast. I don't know. Maybe it's timeless. It's just Leigh and I sharing our thoughts and bringing some of the conversations that we have that aren't recorded into a recorded format, or trying to. It's like something Gary Vee said at one of the conferences, or did he say it online somewhere, where it's like the best shit that I've ever recorded, or the best shit that I've ever said was just not recorded.
Yeah. I think that's us, isn't it, at the minute?
Yeah.
We had that realisation yesterday. We're like, damn, these conversations need to be recorded.
It's one of the things that came up this week. It's like we need to get back on the podcast because we've missed a big time chunk. When we did our last podcast, it was like a diary. We were just checking in at certain points, sharing our experiences, sharing the journey, I guess you could say. And, you know, for numerous reasons and obvious reasons, we stopped with that podcast and took a little bit of time to go away. We've learned a lot. We've integrated a lot. I feel like we're coming back into the podcast space with a big difference in terms of our mentality.
It's like, what's the word? It's like even more ammunition, even more loaded, you know?
Yeah, fully loaded.
To try and work out what the hell's going on here.
Exactly. And I don't even know where my mind goes these days. You know, I think there was a lot of proving in the last podcast as well. I think up to this point in my life, there's been a lot of proving. Whereas now it's just like, okay, let's just have a good conversation and see where it takes us. And yeah, we'll have certain topics, you know, like you might see on our content these days, you know, the way we've reshaped our business and the way that we do things through hair is a lot different compared to what it was before. It's a lot less hair focused. It's a lot more human focused. It's a lot more psychological focus, like psychology, understanding human behavior, and really just trying to dig into that rather than the hair stuff. The hair stuff's fucking boring.
It's weird how it turns like that, isn't it? It becomes like the least important thing. The cutting of the hair really becomes the least important thing in like the stack of what makes that whole thing work and makes it powerful. The psychological side of it is really important. I think especially moving into times that we're moving into and the future, if you will. The world's going to be looking very different. It already is looking very different. And that requires new ways of thinking. And that's kind of where I feel like we're at. We're just trying to pioneer, not necessarily pioneer, but I could push the outer edges of the thought space that we have in the hair industry. Because it's very one-track minded, isn't it? It has been for a long time. It's a very industrial, revolution-minded industry. Like, yeah, the word, it's in the name, industry. With its models and its systems and the way that it thinks. And I say it because the industry is a thing. Like, it is a thing on its own. And let's just start there. That's one of the, I think, qualms that I've had over the last few months is talking about the industry like it's some sort of like godhead. Like, people will lose themselves in the pursuit of saving the industry. And I hear this all the time. Oh, what about the industry? What about the industry? Yeah, what about the people? Like, we lose ourselves in the pursuit of trying to save the industry. So it's a thing. And I think that's where we come full circle in it. It's like, yeah, but what about the people? And yeah.
Putting it down to the industry as well and just using that as a, you know, play is kind of like there's an absence of responsibility there. It's kind of taking the personal responsibility out of it, because like, oh, everything I'm doing is for the industry. But
It's like, what? That's horrible.
But you're lying to yourself. Like, I'm like, if it was me, I'm lying to myself if I'm saying that, because ultimately there's always an ulterior motive there, in terms of like, we're doing all of this, all of our careers essentially are to give ourselves freedom. And I think, you know, that's something we've been chasing a lot, is freedom. When was the last podcast? It has to be a good 6 to 8 months ago.
Well, I think we did the last ones at Christmas, didn't we? We did some solo casts. I did one, you did one.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it was...
Yeah. It would have been a good 6
all
to
over.
8
Red
months.
Rover.
Yeah. Good 6 to 8 months ago. Where we're at now is completely different to where we were then. You know, I think there's a big, like we were saying, there's a big chunk in the middle that we're going to catch up on, I guess, over the course of the podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons in there, and a lot of topics, and a lot of learnings that we can dig into and share. I also feel like some of that stuff is probably best kept in the past too. Like, there's a lot of things in there that's just like, well, it's just, that's part of our journey. You know, there's an inevitable trust that this was meant to happen at the right time. I feel, like the way we operate now with 101 and what we're doing with our business now is completely changed. We're looking at things a lot differently. We're in that pursuit of the more freedom. We've kind of flipped the business model on its head. We went from working hard, as Leigh was saying at the start, like always on the road. Like, fun, ironically, we're in Brisbane right now, about to go and do a workshop, but you know, nowadays it doesn't look like this very often. Nowadays we're at home most of the time and traveling maybe once a month, whereas before it was like maybe we're at home once a month and traveling the rest of the time.
And that's where our thought processes start to change, when I think we look at things from a lens of like, what's the highest impact things we can do? And this might sound counterintuitive, but a lot of the time being at home in our preferred spaces is the highest impact work we can do. We can reach a lot of people, we can create meaningful content, we can create valuable content, we can work on our business, not just in our business. There's a real magic to it, and I think the dynamic works really well with how we work together. And that's a life by design, isn't it? That's us choosing our reality in our world, not having it chosen for us, which is massive. We just had this conversation yesterday with another educator, and we were talking about that life on the road and the work-life kind of balance. I don't like the word balance, but it's understandable for everybody. The work-life balance thing, and we really realized, we're like, wow, yeah, we don't really subscribe to that model anymore of just always having to be on the road just because you're an educator and that's what you should do and that's the noble thing and the work hard thing. It's like, okay, what do we want to choose, and how's that going to look, and what's highest impact, highest value, and what's going to bring most joy to our lives? And I love where we're at right now. I really love what we do. It feels very aligned. It feels very valuable, not just to me and you, but to people that come into contact with it. It's a life by choice. It's a life by design, which is freaking epic if you ask me. That's the goal. Yeah.
You know, that whole kind of industry conversation, you know, since the app Threads came out, I've turned into a little bit of a savage.
Are you on Threads?
Yeah. I am. You should follow me on there.
Wow.
You should.
Wouldn't I guess? Yeah, you should. You need to.
You should. Because, like, if you're not, then you're missing out. But, yeah, that app's turned me into a little bit of a savage. And I mean, look, a lot of people listening to this would have heard this before, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I feel like that's what we're doing in the hair industry. most people are doing the same thing on repeat and expecting something to change. One day I'll get the money. One day I'll have the freedom. One day everything will work out. And that whole mentality just it's backward. And I think there's a part of me that is now I've become comfortable with accepting the fact that we may be disliked in certain conversations. We have the courage now, I guess you could say, to be disliked in a sense, because what we're saying is like coming from a place of good intent. And I think that's what's sometimes missed. You know, we have conversations with people, and you know, sometimes we get a little bit of hate, sometimes we get love. Most of it is love, to be fair. But you know, there's always the person who challenges our thought, and that's the whole point. That's why we're doing it, is to encourage and inspire people to think a little bit differently about how they are living, because is it sustainable? And is it bringing them the thing that they think they're working for, which is freedom, joy, happiness, peace, whatever that looks like to each person. And you know, again, the whole work-life balance thing, that's a fucking load of shit. It's a load of bollocks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, that's actually a thing that's deployed and used as a strategy or a weapon by the industrial model.
I was going to say, where from?
To keep people working. And they're working towards this work-life balance. Like, we're conditioned to work towards this work-life balance. But really, if you think about balance, it's, you look at a seesaw, right? Like, balance is something that's in the middle. So if you're always in the middle, like if you're never fully in work or you're never fully in life, then you're forever going to be chasing the work-life balance. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
The thing that I don't like about it is it's to assume that they're separate. And when there's a separateness, you're either going to go towards one more and run from the other more. And that's I feel like that's just such a not so much a bad way to do it or a dangerous way to do it, but it's just not an optimal way to do it. It's energy draining. Like, if you think you're always trying to get away from something, you know, I'm sure people use work as an escape from their life, and I'm sure some people can't wait to escape their work with their life, and then they fill their life side of the balance with all sorts of distractions and addictions and sorts of things. So getting back to our kind of thought process and moving into we are in the information age. We've been in it for a while now. There's different ways to do things, and there's a lot more choice, and I really lean into that, like really try and help people choose their reality rather than having it chosen for you. Because like I was saying there, where did the work-life balance come from? Industrial revolution. Like, and that was chosen for these people. They didn't really choose that. It's just what everybody did. Maybe not optimal, and back to your point of people challenging ideas and what people say and challenging us and whatever. For me personally, if I'm going to challenge anything, like the work-life balance thing, like the industrial revolution thing, it's from a place of curiosity. And the reason curiosity for me works is because it keeps the love in it. So when there's a challenge and it's from a negative space to try and tell somebody they're wrong or they can't do that, it's negative and it takes the love out of the thing. Let's face it, nobody knows what the fuck's going on. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year. So one of our most powerful weapons is just to stay curious. Stay curious, keep the love in it. I know it sounds woo-woo, but it's like, we've got to keep the love in it, because at the moment what we're doing is we're just tearing this world apart and tearing people apart and just pulling the love away from everything. For what? Some stupid social media free to use app. It's ridiculous.
And it's, there's a lot of assumption in it too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of assumption in language, and it's, it's one form of communication. It's written. And I think that's why, like, coming back on a podcast and recording conversation in long form allows us to give context to a lot of the stuff that we speak about. And, unless I've got all the information that I need about something, I very, very rarely make an assumption about somebody's intent. And that's the thing. Our intent is to empower. Our intent is to put people back in a place of power, because somewhere along the line in this hair industry, we've lost it. We've lost the power to the client. The whole the client is always right thing. Bloody hell.
We had that great conversation yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Who made that up? The client is always right. Again, probably an industrial revolution thing. I think the metrics for that is
manipulation.
This is just an opinion.
Manipulation.
Yeah, manipulation. But also, the client is always right in a world where money, profit, and metrics matter. That's the only thing that matters. If that's the only thing that matters, yes, the client is always right. Why? Because you need to do as many clients as you can, and you need to make as much money as you can, as much profit as you can. And where does that come from? The client. But if you flip it and think about the human, or you think about progress as humans, the way we think, positive reinforcement, great mental fitness, great mental health, then maybe the client's not always right. Maybe if we look at it from a psychological lens, are they always right when they're acting from conditioning or trauma? That's how most people act. And it's true for them, but it doesn't always mean it's right. To say it's right is wild, really. Who knows what's right? Like I said, one of the only constants in life is uncertainty. We don't know. We don't actually know. All we can go by is feeling, really. Mm-hmm. If it feels good, great. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, not great.
Yeah, and to assume the client is always right is saying what? In the opposite. That we are then wrong.
Wrong.
And
exactly.
If we are feeling wrong, and then our patterns and our conditioning comes up, then we're approaching it from a place of stress. What do we know about stress? When you get stressed, you lose up to 40, 50, 60% of your IQ within 7 minutes, because there's a chemical that's released in the body called cortisol, which is the stress chemical. And within 7 minutes, you can lose over half of your IQ. Mm-hmm. So then what do? We start making poorer decisions. We start doubting ourselves. How do we know this? Because we've been there. There's been times where I've been conditioned into believing that the client was right as well.
Yeah. I spent 10 years of my career like that. First 10 years of my career, that was my conditioning. Mm-hmm. The client's right. Bend over backwards for them. And this is what we teach in our $1 million consultation system, is that be careful what you compound. Be careful what you're actually conditioning the client to believe. If they are acting from a place of trauma, conditioning, which isn't favorable, which isn't necessarily positive or constructive, if we just go along with that, my boss said the client's always right, so they must be right. We're just confirming that it's okay to be that way. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, you just walk all over me. And even though I know you're not right, you just do it anyway. And then we live in this world of falsity where, it's weird in psychology. You only have to get away with that thing once. And the brain thinks, it's okay to do. We've got to be so careful of what we compound and what we condition, and that's why our system is so bloody powerful, because it cuts all that shit out, essentially, and it keeps it top line, and it keeps it realistic. It keeps it real. That's what I like about it. I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people, and that's the biggest change that we have to help people with and facilitate, is that being able to handle the realness of it.
Our industry, I feel, is filled with desperate energy, though. It's like we're trying to convince people that they need haircuts all the time. And that's where all of this thinking comes from when it comes to the client always being right, because we're doing it at an all cost mentality. Like what Leigh always talks about is this like at all cost mentality. And it's like, we need the client to come and get the haircut because we need the money, but we'll do it at all costs, meaning if it's detrimental to my team, like if I'm putting myself in a shop owner's position, if it doesn't matter if it's detrimental to my team as long as we make the money this week. And you know, this word sustainability has been fucking thrown around like it's
I don't like
fashion.
I don't like it.
And like, you know, if we're really thinking about sustainability, you know, from the essence of the word, and I know you don't like it, and I know where you're going with it, but if we really look at sustainability from the essence of the word, then is it not more sustainable to have a team that want to stay? There's always more people in there. I think what people tend to forget in our industry is that there's like millions of people that all have hair. Like everybody is potentially your client.
Yeah.
But not everyone is your client. But there's more people. Like for example, one time, you know, in a past situation, I told a client not to come back to the shop. Situation arose, something happened. I used my, you know, sensory acuity, my situational awareness, my experience to tell a client basically, I don't think that you should come back to the shop. You're not welcome here, basically. And I was told off for that.
Because you were wrong.
Because money, profit, everything else came into it. Now look, not here to chat shit, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, and that's fucking nonsense. Because what does that do? It tells your team that the clients are more important than you. Wow.
And the reality is, again, that's not to assume that we're more important than them. The reality is we're all as important as each other. That's this thing of like co-collaboration and this is in co-creation. Like, it's something that I've started talking about lately, and we'll start bringing into our education. But it really is about co-creation. Like, if we want to move forward as a species and humanity, and as a kind of, I don't know, a joyful existence, like it's surely about co-creation. These power dynamics are just killing us, absolutely killing us. Oh, I'm right, you're wrong. This should be done, shouldn't be done. It's like, oh, guys, could we just co-create and move through this together? And where this came from for me was Johann Hari's work about one of the reasons why a lot of people are depressed is the lack of meaningful interaction or lack of meaningful human connection. Well, what on earth is meaningful human connection? I looked at my work and thought, I don't have a lot of meaningful human connection with my clients. Really, it's not that meaningful to me because I was operating out of an old system. So how can I make it meaningful? One of the ways that for me is like co-creation. That's really meaningful. Takes a power dynamic out of it, takes any right or wrongs. It's just we're moving through this world together, keeping the love in it, keeping the curiosity in it. It's really cool. It's a cool way to think. It feels very light to think that way, and everybody has their say, and it's all top level, and it's good. And
that's spreading out across all of what we do now. It's not just in the aspect of hairdresser to client in the barbershop or hairdressing setting. It's actually coming across in our education as well. Like, we're about to go do a session with a salon, and you know, we have it planned to a degree, but we also understand that when we get there, we're going to have to essentially have a consultation with them on the fly, figure out how we can best serve them and how we can co-create for the day that we have so that they get the most out of what it is that they want us for.
Yeah. And that's leaving a drop of curiosity in there as well.
Yeah. Like, what do they need from us? And we, without asking like good questions, we're not going to get a good result. Like a lot of the answers that we're looking for come in asking the good questions. So we just need to go into these situations with curiosity, no assumption, ask questions, and deliver what it is that they need in that moment. And a lot of our education is going that way. Our delivery style is completely changed. It's not, there's no assumption in it. It's not driven home. It's not like this is the way you need to do it. This is the way you have to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the result looks like actually at all, as long as you understand.
That's what I was going to say. The way that we deliver it now, and I don't even want to use the word education, because just while you were speaking there, we really refrain from telling people what to do. Like, there's no right way to do anything. And we ask great questions to co-create a solution for the person. You see, this is where I love our delivery and our content, and what's so unique about the way we do it is we come at it from a human and psychological viewpoint, because a lot of education is someone just telling you this is how to do it. This is what's right. I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to throw education at you. Whereas coaching is more co-creating a solution for the person or the team or the salon or the business owner, whoever we're working with. And it's such an empowering dynamic. It's just such a beautiful place to be. I don't ever, and that's back to your point about like content. Anybody who like watches any of our content, it's from our curious minds of potential solutions and ideas that could be used. None of it is telling you what to do. It's just ideas, and a lot of the ideas we've realized have worked for us. We share through and from experience, and it's a lot of it's worked for us. But again, they're just little drops of ideas and curiosities of like, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? What you'll notice with all of our content is that we never tell you what to do. It's all just ideas. And then we take that and we can co-create solutions.
And if we are telling you what to do, please understand the game of the app that we're playing. Like it's designed very strategically, very purposefully as a hook. And then in the caption, that's where the real gold is. Yeah. You know, I think I say this all the time, to different people in my life, but I'm like, damn, I got all this coaching that I offer as a service, and all of our, courses that we offer as services. But like, if you just go through and actually read the captions in our posts, you'll get most of it.
I tried a new thing this morning, not a new thing, but I just didn't put a caption. Just put one line. Yeah. Listen, if you do one thing today, listen to this. Yeah, well, that's all it needs to be sometimes, right? Because we care about the caption. There's a lot of value in the caption, and we're careful about how we curate it and how the message gets across to whoever likes to see it. But we know, and I guess all of you know, that most people don't read the captions, and there's a lot left on the table there. So I thought, okay, the particular piece of content that I put out was quite powerful in its delivery. All the information was there. It's like, okay, you don't want to read the caption? Just listen. Please listen. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's just so much value.
But again, it's just an idea. It's my ideas and my curiosity where they're at right now, because they're going to change again. That's why I never tell you what to do, because I know that it keeps changing. And that's what I love about, again, another thing about I love what we do and how we think is like, we're so open to change. That's a really beautiful thing. Yeah. It takes a lot of humility. You got to dig deep on yourself. You got to get rid of a lot of the shit that's hiding behind your ego, a lot of shadow work, to be able to accept the fact that what I do today might not work tomorrow, and I'm open to change. Yeah. And I'm open to change fast. That's, if you take anything from this, it's be open to change fast. Well,
that's one thing that, because we're going to have to go in a second, but I think one thing to kind of leave you guys with is that it's like the whole sustainability conversation, you know, sustaining something is keeping it the same. And Leigh always speaks about this. It's like sustainability is just keeping things the way that it is. But that's actually not future-proofing anyone. It's not future-proofing anything. And if I remember one profound moment this year, we were going to our 3-day course in Sydney. We were in an Uber and we were on the way there. And I just remember I looked over at Leigh and I just said, if somebody shows us a better way to do it, we'll change it all tomorrow. And that's the kind of level of openness that we have to it. We're not stuck to our ideas. You know, the whole idea of, you know, what's the Chris Williamson thing again? Love when my brain does this. Strong opinions loosely held, which means our opinions are strong because they're backed with a lot of evidence and logic, but they're loosely held, meaning if more evidence and better logic changes how we feel and think about it, we will completely change the way we do things. So everything that we share in our workshops, our classes, and our coaching and everything is coming from a place of experience, knowledge, logic, the most efficient and effective way to do something. Somebody shows us a better way tomorrow with anything, across our whole entire lives, we'll change it. Someone says to me, oh, you know, stop eating that food because of X, Y, Z, not just because of their feelings or opinion about it. It's like, give me the science. Like, a lot of stuff can be solved like through science as well. It's like, okay, show me the science then, you know, show me how it's backed. Not to the point where it's like completely just science based, because, you know, we have that conversation as well about like, show me the studies, you know. There doesn't always need to be.
Show me the research paper.
But like there's common sense, there's common logic. But, you know, what we do know is common sense isn't always common practice. Common practice. So, with that being said, I think we're going to have to wrap up today. The episode before the episode, because we've got to go. We got a workshop in 15 minutes, and we got to get to the place. So, welcome back to the pod before the pod. Any last words, Leigh?
It feels good to be back.
Yeah, it does. A little warm-up episode.
That was a nice way to get the brain box going.
Yes, and prepare for a lot more. You know, this one was quite off the cuff, on the cuff, whatever you want to call it. And we'll be back in 2023, 2024, and forevermore to continue these lovely conversations.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, watching, however you're consuming this lovely content.
Keep it real.